Where do you see the economy heading over, say, the next decade? I know you're probably hesitant to make short-term forecasts, but as you look out over the next decade, where do you see the economy heading?
Well, a decade is a long time. uh, I think that we are in a prolonged slow time, and right now the outcome depends a lot on Europe and Asia, which are weakening economies. There's a threat to a second downturn, a double dip. If that comes, then I could imagine the economy still looking weak in another decade. But that's not a forecast. The problem with history is it's constantly surprising us. And I could easily see another boom. I mean, in the next 10 years, absolutely. I don't know, and I think that the record of forecasters is nobody knows.
Sort of to that point, why did so many experts miss the economic crash of 2008?
Experts have always missed big events like this. If you look at the record of statistical forecasting models, they tend to get the recession when it's starting to come, and when a casual observer might start to worry about it. Forecasting it years out, they don't get. In particular, if you look at the Great Depression of the 1930s, nobody forecasted that. Zero. Nobody. Now, there were, of course, some guys who were saying the stock market is overpriced and it will come down. But if you look at what they said, did that mean a depression is coming? A long, decade-long depression? That was never said. I've asked economic historians, give me a name of someone who predicted the depression, and it comes up zero.
Now, we should also state for the record that between the dot-com bubble and the housing bubble, you are essentially 2 for 2 for maybe not calling the timing perfectly,
Yeah.
but certainly pointing out that asset classes were in a bubble. What were you looking at that other people were not?
Well, I have maybe a different philosophy toward economic research. I believe, maybe I think more like a historian. There were some historians who predicted World War II years before it happened. And how did they predict it? By looking at what people were saying and thinking, inferring what their thinking was. Not many people did that, but some people did. I think it's analogous. I'm looking in the 1990s at what people are thinking, what they're saying, and thinking about what their motives are, and what they're sweeping under the rug and what they're ignoring. I think I was helped by behavioral economics as well. That was a whole revolution that I was very much involved in, psychology and economics. And that wasn't still that popular among economic forecasters. So that's why I was willing to make these odd statements that we might be in for a big correction.
So maybe the two best traits for a good economist and maybe a good investor as well is a deep appreciation of history and a good understanding of psychology. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that there's too much faith in analysis of short-term data. You see some pattern, and you can do a statistical test and prove that it was significant, or it passes the smell test to a statistician. But the problem is the world is always changing. It's not a stable thing. The underlying human parameters may be stable, but you can see that there's institutional and cultural evolution, and it's not something that you can quantify.